YouTube? Make sure my lens is clean. So today I'm working on the famous Mach 1. Used to call this car the Punisher. It'll punish a lot of people. But not with those Netto street tires on it, it won't. All it will do is impress a lot of people with the rolling, smoking burnouts and black marks on the street. But other than that, this car has been just absolutely rock solid. Just to recap, has a built motor, forged steel crank, iron block, billet rods in it, ported heads, L&M camshafts, VMP supercharger. That's the old school 2.3, which still gets the job done, makes just at 800 rear-wheel horsepower, the limit of the stock fuel rails you'll see there. Return fuel system from Ford. It's got the I think this car, man, I got so many projects. It's either got the dual or triple pumps in it at the E85 compatible, like the 465 pumps, I believe. It's either dual or three. Man, I don't remember. I think it's the dual pumps. Let's go with the dual pump. It's got 80-pound injectors, again, limited about 800 with this combination, but everything is optimized for this car. With that blower, stock fuel rails, the injectors, dual fuel pumps, 800 all day long at the tires, 6-speed Magnum transmission from Mach, McLeod twin disc RXT clutch. It's just a really, really nice combination. Not only does it run great, it's got a little choppy cam sound to it, long tube headers, 3-inch exhaust. I've never raced this car. Of all the vehicles I've ever taken to track, I've not raced this car. So it's coming soon. I'd like to do that. If you remember my 03 Cobra, had that supercharger on it, 85, made 700 at the tires, 373 gear, solid rear, which is back under this car now. And at the track, that car would go 1050s at 137, like clockwork. No matter how you launched it, it'd go 1050s at 137. 8th mile, it was between 670s and 690s, depending on the launch. And this car is it's just really cool car. Now, that was the Cobra. This car, by comparison, has more compression. Instead of like 8.5 to 1 in the Cobra motor, this one has like 10 to 1. This one has cams, that one didn't. This has ported heads, that one didn't. Pretty much everything else is the same. So I would expect with this boost I got on it, which is 26 pounds of boost, more compression in the cams, this thing should go at least 10.0 to 10.20 at about a $1.40 to a $1.45 in the quarter. Should run a 9 if I could get the launch down, but like I said, I've never run it. So coming soon, I might go try to run it, just throw a number up so I've got a time slip to go with it. But today, I'm actually doing some maintenance on it just because I like to check the health. It's been a few years since I built this combination. I've gone through a couple of transmissions and all. It's run great, but I just wanted to make sure everything's up to snuff. So first thing is I'm changing spark plugs. These are the NGK Iridium TR8iX, part number 3691. This is the plug I use in all my high performance cars. So my black Mustang right here, the twin turbo Saleen, it has the same plugs in it. Because I'm running 26 pounds of boost. 26 pounds, don't matter how you get it, with supercharger, turbo, whatever. 26 pounds is 26 pounds. So when you get to start making over 20 pounds of boost, I like the TR7 or TR8 spark plug. TR8 is what I go with on this one. And just looking at how it's burning on E85, get up in here, this actually looks pretty good. You can tell they've been in there for a minute, but they're still overall really clean for what it is. You can tell it runs a little rich just cruising around, but that's okay. They've been in there for, I don't know, 2-3 years now, I guess. So I got a brand new set here to put in it. And I've actually already done one side, just put it back together. I'm about to do the driver's side. The passenger side is very hard on this car because the supercharger and the inlet is all in your way. So if you get you a socket with some wobbles on the end of it there, multiples on top and bottom, you can actually snake this in there and get the plugs in and out. I use a magnet to get them out once they're loose. I use a rubber hose on the end to twist them in. Let me show you what that looks like. You just basically take a spark plug, slide it on here. There you go. So you get all the way down, use the rubber hose, twist it in place. If you just drop them in, you can close your gap. Now, if you'll notice, I got a really tight gap on these. I'm running around 25 thousandths gap on it with this high compression and all that it's got. So with the boost and high compression, I run a little tighter gap, most people do. but 24 to 26 where I normally run them. Typically I'll set these at 25 and put them back in with a little bit of anti-seize on the threads. So that just shows you that. And one other thing, I want to do a compression test on this car. I haven't done one since I've got it. So if you get online, you go to Amazon, get this OTC compression tester. It's real easy to do. You basically find you a 14 millimeter deep reach, which is what this thread is. You push it in here, you tighten it down hand tight like that, and then you take this and you hook it up like that. Now before you start spinning it, what they recommend is you pull all the spark plugs out, you disconnect all the coils obviously, and you disconnect all the fuel injectors because you don't want fuel spraying in there while you're spinning over. I also like to put my battery charger on here because you are turning it over a few times. Make sure the battery doesn't go weak, and you have consistent results cylinder to cylinder. So the way you start this out, before you take it apart, you crank the car up and get the operating temperature. Then you start pulling it apart, unhook the fuel injectors, pull out all the coils, make sure they're unhooked, pull out all the spark plugs, and you do one cylinder at the time. And basically you spin it over. I like to spin over 8 to 10 times. And then as you spin it over, you need to point the gauge so you can see it. You want consistent range, and each motor is going to be a little different. For mod motors, between cold and hot, you should see typically 160 to 180 in that range. And I've already done my compression check. So if you'll notice, as I started on cylinder 5, worked my way down, and then over here and then back around. I had 187, 190, 187, 191. And then on this side, I had 181, 179, 184, 184. So I attribute a little bit of difference here as the motor was actually cooling off, because the motor was warmer when I started here. And by the time I got through each cycle, because you had to spin it 10 times, get out and check it, then remove it and move it. By the time I got over here, the motor cooled down just a touch. So I feel like if I went back and I did it at the same temperature when I started, and I started over here, these numbers may be just a little bit higher. But either way, you want within 10% of each cylinder to cylinder. As long as you're within 10%, the motor should be sound. Again, my motor, it's a lowest is 179, highest is 191. I mean, those are awesome numbers. That's a very healthy engine, which it should be. This thing is like brand new. I don't think this motor has got over 1,500 miles on it. I do drive the car. You've noticed in my other videos. I love this car. It is probably one of the strongest and most fun to drive cars I've ever built, because it's a really simple combination. That supercharger has instant torque down low. When you hit the throttle, whatever you got it pulley for, that's what it makes. And with this pulley, this is a Grip Tech pulley. You'll notice it's a 69 millimeter. This pulley with the 6-pound lower I have down there makes 26 pounds of boost in this combination. Now, if I didn't have the cams and I had stock cams with idle smooth, you'd probably make another pound or two of boost, but having cams actually knocks the boost down. Doesn't mean they still make the same power, just means you won't see that kind of restriction because the cams are got a big overlap. Anyway, technical, probably don't care about that. But anyway, you spin it over, you get your compression. Once you get your compression, write number down, and you hit this button, it releases the pressure. You unhook this, and then you unscrew this and move it to the next cylinder. So it's real easy to do.